All right, Song of Solomon, chapter 6. Let's call this one Overwhelmed, understanding that whole reality of friendship and love actually takes place in the context of reality. Meaning, once we get past the swooning, there are some difficult situations that make it tough to stay friends. Understanding that in this chapter, it is going to seem to begin and end with the others, maybe possibly mocking the she or the woman or the love interest of Song of Solomon, who is becoming more than a love interest, as we have said, to become a bride. And in that process, it seems that there is some not so friendly rivalry between the bride and the others, who more and more in this chapter seem to take the place as the others in Solomon's life. Meaning, this is a man who eventually had 700 wives and 300 concubines, and their love was going to have to take place in the reality of that situation. Understanding we don't know the timing of this particular relationship. However, Solomon is going to seem to give us an indication in verse 8 where he says there are 60 queens and 80 concubines and virgins without number. Making sure that at this point it seems that we all know she's not the only one, and the others are reminding her. And so as they go back to talking about beauty, the reason why we called this chapter Overwhelmed is as she is going to look for Solomon in the previous chapter, asking for help from the others. Understanding that their mocking seems to begin in the previous chapter where they ask, why is your beloved more special than any other? Understanding that in this chapter, they may be meaning, why is your beloved any more special to you than the rest of us? Understanding that early on in this chapter, when it says that the beloved had gone to his garden, it might mean that he was simply going to make good use of his time, picking literal flowers for her in preparation to make his way back to her. Or it could mean that this is a man with many gardens and many vineyards, which represent the fact that he had many wives and many concubines. And the reality of their situation is when he returns to her, he may not be able to stand her gaze because she knows where he's been. As verses 4 and 5 will read, you are beautiful as Tirzah, my love, lovely as Jerusalem, awesome as an army with banners. Turn away your eyes from me, for they overwhelm me. Understanding, I've already confessed, I don't understand this book very well because I've avoided it for years. So I'm simply giving you one possible interpretation that draws on the reality of life. Understanding that in life, there are times when having a distinguished relationship comes with a distinguished cost. And even though in our modern times, there should never be having to share a married man with side pieces. In this context, this is a woman who had to live with the reality that having the love of a man as distinguished as Solomon meant that she was going to have to share his time with his other wives and concubines. And the beauty of this story may be that within that reality, she still sees him as a friend and presents herself as someone he can trust anyway. A level of commitment that Solomon seems to reciprocate by saying, even in the midst of all these queens and concubines, she is still the one. Which is why we sometimes say, beyond carving out some sort of justification for infidelity in our modern times, my prayer for you is my prayer for me. May God strengthen us to endure the great responsibility that often goes along with great love.